Hello everyone, my name is Chyndi Ainun Nadila. Today I would like to present an infographic entitled Electricity Consumption and Production in the Countries. This infographic explains the comparison between electricity production and electricity consumption in several countries measured in billion kilowatt hours. Furthermore, this presentation will discuss the general overview of the graphs, several important trends, and the conclusion based on data presented. First of all, the graphs illustrate electricity production and electricity consumption in several countries around the world. In addition, the infographic compares how much electricity each country produces and consumes. Therefore, the data helps us understand different energy conditions, industrial activities, and electricity demands among countries. Moreover, the graph shows that some countries experience electricity surpluses, while others face balance or electricity deficits. Overall, China and United States have the highest electricity production and consumption levels among the countries observed. Meanwhile, Russia and Korea demonstrate relatively balanced electricity figures because the differences between production and consumption remain relatively small. In contrast, Germany experiences a production deficit since electricity consumption exceeds electricity production. Furthermore, India and Canada show electricity production surpluses because both countries produce more electricity than they consume. Therefore, the infographic reflects different economic conditions, industrial capacities, and electricity demands across countries. To begin with China. China records the highest electricity production among all countries observed. The country produces approximately 5,398 billion kilowatt hours, while electricity consumption reached around 5,322 billion kilowatt hours. As a result, China experiences a production surplus of approximately 76 billion kilowatt hours. Moreover, this condition indicates that China has economous industrial activities and extremely high energy demands. In addition, the crown symbol represents China as the country with the highest electricity production and consumption levels. Similarly, the United States also demonstrates very high electricity production and consumption levels. The country produces approximately 4,099 billion kilowatt hours and consumes around 3,866 billion kilowatt hours. Consequently, the United States records a production surplus of approximately 233 billion kilowatt hours. Furthermore, the upward green arrow symbols a strong electricity surplus and positive energy condition. Therefore, the data suggests that United States possesses advanced industrial system and strong economic activities. Moving on to Russia. The country demonstrates relatively balanced electricity figures. Russia produces approximately 1,057 billion kilowatt hours and consumes around 1,038 billion kilowatt hours. Moreover, the balance scale symbol represents the relatively equal condition between electricity production and consumption. As a result, Russia appears capable of managing its electricity supply effectively according to national demands. West Korea also shows relatively balanced electricity figures. The country produces approximately 485.1 billion kilowatt hours and consumes around 449.5 billion kilowatt hours. Consequently, the gap between production and consumption remains relatively moderate. Furthermore, the balance symbol and similar bar height visually represent the stable electricity condition in Korea. Therefore, Korea demonstrates effectively electricity management and balanced energy usage. In contrast with Germany, Germany experiences a different electricity condition compared to the previous countries. Germany produces approximately 526.6 billion kilowatt hours. However, the country consumes around 582.5 billion kilowatt hours. Consequently, Germany records a production deficit of approximately 55.9 billion kilowatt hours because electricity consumption exceeds electricity production. Moreover, the red towards arrow and warning symbol represent the electricity deficit experienced by Germany. Therefore, the German demonstrate an imbalance between electricity production and electricity consumption. Furthermore, India records a significant electricity production surplus. India produced approximately 871 billion kilowatt hours, while electricity consumes reached around 689.8 billion kilowatt hours. As a result, the country experienced a production surplus and approximately 172.2 billion kilowatt hours. Additionally, the green upwards arrow and plus symbol visually represent positive electricity growth and surplus condition. Therefore, the data indicate that India continues expanding its electricity production capacity to support economic growth and industrial development. Finally, the Canada also records electricity production surplus. Canada produced approximately 618.9 billion kilowatt hours and consumes around 499.9 billion kilowatt hours. Consequently, the country experienced surplus because electricity production exceeds national consumption. As a result, the country experienced a production surplus of approximately 119 billion kilowatt hours. Furthermore, the hydropower and symbol represent Canada renewable electricity resources, especially hydropower energy. Therefore, Canada demonstrates strong electricity production capabilities supported by abundant natural resources. In conclusion, the infographic shows different patterns of electricity production and consumption among the countries observed. First, Germany experienced electricity deficit because electricity consumption exceeds electricity production. Meanwhile, Russia and Korea demonstrate relatively balanced electricity figures because the differences between production and consumption remain relatively small. Furthermore, India and Canada record electricity production surplus since both countries produce more electricity than they consume. Finally, China and United States dominate electricity production and consumption due to their large economies, industrial sectors, and high energy demands. Therefore, the data reflect global differences in economic development, industrial activities, electricity management system, and national energy demands. Thank you. Have a good day.